Okay, so this is task 3, the primary assignment. There is a secondary video that also will show you an alternate method of handling this, but let's stick to this one. This is the basic design, nothing really surprising about this. Now, in this particular thing, I do choose to do one thing a little bit different. This is basically the portion that will keep everything displayed and so forth, whereas I have a class called file work, which handles the heavy lifting of everything that happens to accomplish things. Because of the fact that a separate class cannot write directly to the list boxes and so forth without going through a little bit of a bridge, I just choose to stick the information of years and titles directly into a list, and then on the form code section I just retrieve the list, in this particular case like f.years, and over here in f.titles, and simply add that information directly into the display list boxes that correspond to those. You can do it however you wish, but that just is easier for me to keep them separate. I like to keep things separate so that they don't interfere with each other. Okay, so Form 1 load is where we load the years, and in this particular case it is fairly straightforward. Pass in the file name. You could take and make it so that when you instantiate file work that you pass in the file name and you check to make sure it's a valid file, or check to see whether there was a file name passed in, and if there isn't, to provide some error message or so forth to the user. But I just am choosing to pass in the title to a variable in file work, and see there's a file name here as a property, and to just set that property equal to the file title and the file name rather, and to just directly set it that way. The load years method is called, and in load years it does sets a line, uses stream reader, reads in various different lines in a loop, a while loop, checks to see if it's a year. If it is a year, then adds the line to the years list, which I set up here. Now this check year method is down here, and it makes a few different checks and returns true if it is a year and false if it's not a year. It checks to see if they're digits. It checks to see whether the length is less than 5 characters. However, there is a situation where there is a movie title which is 3 characters. I don't remember what it is exactly, GOG or something stupid like that. So there is a situation where it might not be digits. Okay, so if it's not digits and it isn't, well, let's put it this way. If it's not digits, then it fails that condition and the result is false. Okay, so if the length is greater than 3, then we can check to see if the year is 2017. That handles that ridiculous thing at the end where it says 2017 and unknown or something like that. This wouldn't be necessary if it just said 2017. Okay, so if it's a year, it passes back true. If it's not a year, it passes back false, in order to check to see, is it a year? And if it is, add the year to the years list And when the years list goes back, then we check, say, we do a for each loop rather, and we say grab each year and then put it into the list box. Okay, so no surprise there. Now, when we do the search button, then we clear out the titles list, and we clear out the list box so that it is blank going in, and then we check to see if the year has been selected, because if you click on the search box and you haven't actually selected a year, if you click the search button and you haven't selected a year, then the year selected will be null, and we don't want that to happen. In order to collect that, we say down here in the selected item, if we click on a particular year, then it generates this event and it collects the year and it sticks it into a global thing into the instantiated object, and puts a property and sets that property to that particular year. And it checks here when you click on the search button to say, is it null? If it's not equal to null, then let's go do the work. If it is equal to null, then we have to send a message to the user that says, you must select a year. But if it's not equal to null, it calls display titles, and then when it comes back from there, all of the titles that are for the year you selected are in a list called titles, and then the for each loop pulls them out one by one and adds them to the titles list box. So over in file work, we have a bit of work. When we go into here, we say open up the file name again, have a line. We start off by being in a while loop that takes us basically through the entire file, and then we have an if statement that checks to see if we have the year that we're looking for. We check to see if it is a year first, and then if it is a year, then we check to see if the first 4 digits are the year we're looking for with the year selected. And I trim both of those to 4 digits so that we don't have a problem with that last 2017 thing being unlike all of the others. And then I check and I read a particular line. I do this to help weed out that initial line that has the year on it. And then I start a loop and I say, add the title, add the line to the title, add the line to the title, and it keeps looping until there are no more records that are not part of the year group. And then this ultimately goes, and then this while eventually gets to the end of file and it stops. Now this is a little bit wonky to have to do 2 if statements, 2 loop statements to wheedle through all of this. I have a second video which shows you how to just convert the file into a simple list, and it just adds on an else statement up here, and it makes it easier to do the display later on. This is easy to put the numbers in the numbers portion of the list. It's harder to make this mechanism here work for displaying the titles that belong to the particular year. You either get nothing, or you get everything, or some weird thing in between. This is the thing that I figure most students get hung up on. Okay, so this is how that's broken down. And again, I break this down into a separate class just to make this a simpler sort of thing to work with. On the other one, there are more classes, but one of the classes, for instance, is the class which simply says year and a movie title, so that you have this simple little wrapper, if you will, around both of those, and then you can check them easily. Okay, so when this is running, both of them look the same. You do that, you do this, and they come up. It's fairly simple. The only thing that's different between the doing it this way is that this is 2017 or unknown, and when you click this, you're going to get these same movies, but this 2017 or unknown is kind of stupid in the grand scheme of things. It should just say 2017, and if they're unknown, then find out what the year is. Okay, so otherwise, the results of these two versions that you will see are the same. Okay, and that will be all for this one.